Welcome back for Chapter 3, Exponents and Roots. In Lesson 6, we're going to be estimating square roots. So before we get started with that, let's go ahead and list all the perfect squares. Okay, so let's do it. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, 15 squared is 225, 16 squared is, what is 16 squared? 256. 17 squared is 289. 18 squared is 324. 19 squared is 361. And lastly, 20 squared is equal to 400. Okay, so this is going to come in, and we're going to use this, and it's going to make estimating square roots a lot easier if we have these perfect squared numbers memorized, okay? So, what this says is that you can use the square roots of perfect squares, which are all of these numbers here, those are perfect squares, to estimate the square roots of other numbers. So in the last section, we had perfect square numbers and we were finding the square root of it. So if we had something like the square root of 144, we knew that 144 was a perfect square number. That's the same thing as 12 squared. The square root and the squared cancel each other out. The square root of 144 is 12, right? Now in this lesson, we're not going to be dealing with perfect square numbers. And so we're going to be dealing with other numbers, and so we're going to use these perfect square numbers to estimate what the square root of that number is. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So with example 1, estimating square roots, each square root is between two consecutive integers. All right, so consecutive, that means numbers that are right next to each other. So like 2, 3, 4. Those are consecutive. 2, 5, those numbers are not next to each other, so those are not consecutive. Like 7, 8, 9, right? Those are consecutive. Now, integers means it could be 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. It could be -2, -1, 0. Those would be consecutive integers. So that's what consecutive integers mean. It means numbers, whole numbers, not decimals or fractions. So whole numbers that are right next to each other. That's what consecutive integers are, positive and negative. Okay, so we're going to name the integers and then explain our answer. So we have the square root of 55 for the first one. Okay, so 55, what I'm going to say is 55 is between what perfect squared numbers? So I'm going to say that square root of 55 is between 49 and 64. Okay, so I know that the square root of 55 is between the square root of 64 and the square root of 49. Okay, that means that 55 is going to be bigger. Square root of 55 is going to be bigger than the square root of 49, and it's going to be smaller than the square root of 64. So you see that? 55 is between 49 and 64. Now, I cannot figure out what the square root of this is, but I can figure out what the square root of these are, right? The square root of 49 is the same thing as the square root of 7 squared. And the square root of 64 is the same thing as the square root of 8 squared. So the square root and squared cancel each other out. Square root and squared cancel each other out. And we're left with 7. So what this means is that the square root of 55 is somewhere between 7 and 8. Okay, I'm probably going to say 55 is closer to 49 than it is 64, so it's probably going to be closer to 7, probably like 7.2 or 7.3 or something. That's what the square root of 55 is going to be. Okay, so that's our answer right there. Square root of 55 is between 7 and 8. Okay, let's try the square root of 90. So I'm going to come up here to my perfect squared numbers, and I'm just looking, okay, what 90 is between 81 and 100, right? So that means that the square root of 90 is going to be between the square root of 81. So it's going to be bigger than the square root of 81, and it's going to be smaller than the square root of 100. Now, we can't figure out what the square root of 90 is, but we can figure out what the square root of these are, right? The square root of 81 is the same thing as 9 squared. I'm just rewriting this. The square root of 100 is the same thing as 10 squared. Square root and squared cancel each other out. Square root and squared, oh, this was 10 squared. Cancel each other out. So that tells us that the square root of 90 is between 9 and 10. Now, 90 is almost like right in the middle of these two, but it is slightly closer to 81. So I'd probably say like the square root of 90 is probably like 9.45 or something like that. Let's go ahead and figure it out. So I'm going to go, let's go square root here and go 90. Oh wait, is it 90? Yeah. And what is it? 9.48, right? So it's right in the middle, but it is a little bit closer to 9. Let's try this one here, square root of 55. So let's go square root 55. What did we say? We said 55 is closer to 49, so it's probably going to be closer to 49, so probably like, I don't know, maybe 7.3 or something. Ooh, 7.4, close. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Let's go ahead and try the square root of 32. Okay, so what number, perfect square number, is 32 between? I'm going to say it's between 25 and 36, right? So, square root of 25, so it's going to be smaller and bigger. I mean, it's going to be bigger than the square root of 25 and smaller than the square root of 36. It's between those two numbers. So we can't figure out this, but we can figure out these. This is the square root of 5 squared. And this is the square root of 6 squared. Cancel, cancel. 5. So it's between 5 and 6. I'm going to say 32 is closer to 36 than it is 25. So it's probably, square root of 32 is probably going to be something like 5.7 something. Let's see, 5.7, that's going to be my guess. Okay, what is it, square root of 32? 32. Do you guys have a guess? What do you think? 5.7, that's mine. What's yours? Okay, let's see if you're right. Ooh, 5.65, I was so close. Yeah, so not quite 5.7, but really, really super close. All right. So now it is your turn, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to try D, E, and F on your own. Here's my friend, the pause dragon. Reminding you to pause your device. Go ahead and work out those problems. When you get done, press play, and we'll talk about it. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, let's see how you did. So square root of 132. 132 is between 121 and 144. So square root of 121. Square root of 132 is bigger than 121, but it is less than the square root of 144. Oh, that's not right. That is right. Never mind. Okay, square root of 121 is 11 squared. This is 12 squared. We have Fruit Ninja here, Fruit Ninja here. 12. Okay. There we have it. There is our answer. Now, what do you think? Is 133 the square root of 132 closer to 11 or 12? Let's see here. It seems like it's 11 away from 121, and it is 12 away from 144. So it's really going to be really, really close to just 11.5, but it is closer to this one. So I'm going to say it's like 11.48 or something. Let's see. 132. Hey, 11.48. Awesome. Man, that feels good to get it right. Okay, so if you got that right, awesome job. Let's go ahead and look at E. See how you did here. So square root of 78, that is between 64 and 81. So square root of 64, square root of 78 is bigger than that, but it's less than the square root of 81. We know this is the same thing as 8 squared. This is the same thing as 9 squared. Fruit Ninja, those cancel each other out. We're left with 8. So we know that the square root of 78 is between 8 and 9, and 78 is a lot closer to 81 than it is 64, so it's really going to be close to 9. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like 8.89 or something. Let's see. What do you think? What do you think it's going to be? I'm going to say it's going to be like 8.89. That's going to be my guess. What's your guess? Okay, let's see if you're right. So square root of 78 is, 8.83. I said 8.89, but it's 8.83. I still had 8.8 right, though. So perfect. Okay, so that's what it is. It's approximately 8.83. Okay, so if you got that one right, great job. Let's move on to this last one here, the square root of 201. So let's look up here. What numbers is that between? Okay, we got 196 and 225. Okay. So square root of 196. 201's bigger than that. But it's less than 225 square root. Okay, 196 is the same thing as 14 squared. So we can't figure out what the square root of 201 is, but we can figure out, this is 15 squared, the square root of 196 and the square root of 225. Those cancel, we're left with 14. So it tells us that the square root of 201 is between 14 and 15. Just an estimate there. It is a lot closer to 196, so I'm going to say it's probably like 14.1 or 14.2. That's going to be my guess. Let's see. What's your guess? Let's see here. Square root. Do you got your guess down? 201. Ooh, 14.1. All right. There we go. You got it. So if you got that right, yoga thank you much. You did a wonderful job, and I will see you next time. Oh, could you see that? Oh, no. Were you able to see that? Square root of 201 is between 196 and 225, right? 196 is the same thing as the square root of 14 squared. 225 is the same thing as the square root of 15 squared. Fruit Ninja, they cancel each other out, and it falls between these two numbers. So I'm sorry if you couldn't see that. Yeah, that's it. I will see you in a little bit for example 2.